They were the heroes from the future. Teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities, and though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
This week on the Legion Clubhouse, it was never Supergirl all along.
Legion of Superheroes Volume 3, Number 26. Illusion. Published September 1986. Written by Paul Levitz with art by Greg LaRocque, Mike DeCarlo, and Arne Starr. Synopsis. In final battle with the Fatal Five.
After last episode's reveal that Supergirl is really Princess Projectra, who is really now Censor Girl, so she can rejoin the Legion to get around the whole murder bylaw. It's all right here in this issue.
Well, I think there's more to it than that. She makes a long and involved explanation about how I am not the same woman you knew. I have been changed by the power of the oracles, ... Something.
Yeah, it's nice to have that conversation and explain yourself in the middle of a big fight.
Well, she really kind of doesn't, though, because she really leaves a lot of things up in the air, and she's like, "You knew who I was, Polar Boy." I feel like there's a lot, and honestly, I don't think I'm giving anything away in saying that it remains a lot unexplained about the Censor Girl transition. But it is interesting to have this issue show us, pick up from last issue and say, hey, this is a thing, and then have us show Brainiac 5 go, yep.
Yeah, this is a really weird storytelling in that we're doing a lot of talking and explaining while we're in a major battle, which is somewhat weird. And then on top of that, we already know Censor Girl is Princess Projectra, and then they do this weird cutaway to whatever's going on with Brainiac 5 and his group, and he's like, yes, of course, this makes all sorts of sense now, and says, I'm the smartest one in the room, even though our readers knew it before me. And so it is the oddest storytelling method that I have seen that, number one, feels reductive, and number two, makes the reader feel stupid, because at first they're like, wait a minute, Censor Girl is Princess Projectra. Wow, that's weird, and she's going to try to explain things maybe a little bit here and there, but no, let's have Brainiac make you feel stupid by explaining it to you in dumb version.
I feel like it's an extension of traditional Bronze Age storytelling. And I feel like the breaking point of last issue, where we had that cliffhanger moment of Brainiac saying, all right, I know who did it. And most of all, I can tell you who did it. No, wait, I'm sorry, that's Mr. Body and Clue. But he knows, and then we cut away from that moment. And both of those stories essentially pick up right where last issue left off. The expectation that there was no time passing between pages or between the issues. And I feel like to some degree that's a Levitz thing, but it's also Levitz, channeling, this is the way comic books kind of were in 86. So I definitely get your point. I don't necessarily feel like it makes me feel stupid, but I do feel like
and also the fact that Brainiac directly tells Timberwolf, hey, you were right all along. Even dumb people can be smart sometimes.
Even I didn't see that coming. Yeah, you were the one closest to the truth. An awesome concept in itself, which again, the Legionnaires are kids in their early 20s, late teens, and I feel like the smart guy wanting to bag on the dumb jock and see if he even notices. We've all been there, haven't we, Stephen?
No.
You've never bagged on somebody.
No, I've never picked on the dumb jock. The problem with Censor Girl saying, there's a reason why I'm Censor Girl, I assure you, also does nothing to alleviate the tension with the group, because now it is, here's our friend who we thought we knew, who is now betraying us and kept this secret from us. And so once again, she's not doing anything, and the reveal is doing nothing to bring the team closer together. It's actually creating derision among the group, or it will create derision among the group. But again, the writer can do whatever they want. But real people, I think, would be very upset and put off by this reveal without an explanation.
Yeah, and that to me also feels like some of the cruelty as character that we keep seeing. That moment where shrinking Violet just says something mean, or somebody calls Block dumb. I feel like to some degree, Censor Girl refusing to talk to her teammates on this, and almost intimating that they're beneath her because she's royalty and she doesn't have to explain her motives, and noblesse oblige, blabbity blue. I feel like it's another example of how Levitz is giving them character to try and make them all, definitive, make them all feel different. But it's also, because there are so many of them, it's making a lot of the Legionnaires into jerks. We're like at 5 jerks right now.
Well, and as I've said before, we're seeing a lot of rapid change going on with these Legionnaires as Crisis wraps up, as Crisis on Infinite Earths wraps up, and we start to see new takes on this. I mean, the Emerald Eye gets an upgrade in this issue. We get to see Projectra's origin is, again, somewhat revealed in that she's like, I thought I knew there was a multiverse, but the multiverse doesn't exist. And I'm wondering if this is some kind of weird editorial dictate that came down as part of Crisis, because you can't have somebody talk about, we're in a whole other dimension or a whole other universe if those things no longer exist.
The line, there is only one universe around us, does feel like that. It very much feels like an editorial, dictate. And there was, admittedly, DC creators and editors have said, there was a big push to make sure that everybody knew that all of this now happened on one universe. There is no multiverse. There's one DC, new Earth. This is what it is. But and as we've seen with the Crisis storyline, as it keeps kind of rolling out in weird little phases, this is kind of the beginning of the post-Crisis Legion, but also we still aren't fully to the point where the Legion has caught up. This is still considered for another issue, I think another issue or two, still considered a continuation of quote-unquote Earth 1 Legion in official continuity type circles. So
yeah, but you can see
that we start to see the Emerald Eye just becoming a Green Lantern ring here.
To an extent. I mean, it's not doing all Green Lantern stuff. I mean, it is obeying Emerald Empress's will, but it's not creating stuff. It's still very much a blunt Cyclops kind of weapon at this point.
It's blasting and it's making some force shields, and I feel like this is the point where somebody went, hey, this is a modified, unified DC universe. Maybe this green energy is related to the other green energy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it'll be
other writers to pick up on that.
It'll be 50 years before they ever reveal the Emerald Head of Ekron.
It will not be 50
in 52.
Years.
It
will be 25 years, and the Emerald Head of Ekron is the single dumbest thing I've ever heard.
If you've got
I've seen the Rainbow Lieutenant.
No, it's not dumb, because where else are you going to get an Emerald Eye except from an Emerald Head? And that's the dumb. Bigger question that I don't think 52 addressed was, what happened to the second eye? What happened to the other eye? I have to go back and look into that. Then, of course, Mintala, who everyone thinks betrayed the Legion, she is like, nope, I'm actually going to do something to save the Legion and prove that I am worthy, because, again, why wouldn't this work? Every other time that a nobody who is not part of the Legion comes in and does something to save the Legion, suddenly they are instantly promoted to Legion member status. So I can understand Mintala's desire to say, oh, I'm going to pull the rug out from the new Fatal Five and save the Legion. But she also didn't think that maybe she's not smart enough to to do all of that.
I don't know if it's even a smart thing. It feels like lack of experience. And this is really something that starts coming up more and more in the Legion. These kids started doing this nonsense when they were 13, 14, whatever. But we see characters like, Mentala looks to be about 16, 17 years old. But she's played as this young, inexperienced idiot. At one point, she's like, oh, my powers aren't, strong enough, or I haven't learned how to do this. And I feel like it's kind of we've taken that Legion history and we're like, well, what makes these kids special? So many of them just come from planets of people who have the same powers. What makes these kids special? What makes a bouncing boy more than just a fat kid from Metropolis? Or what makes, say, Tellus different from any other purple-headed lizard boy from Hycreus? And I think that having Mentala kind of end up being an idiot, not thinking through her plan, not realizing exactly how dangerous the Emerald Empress is, kind of feels like, okay, we're going to have more complex storytelling. We're going to have more actual adult themes and things going on.
I'm still going with this whole process of, hey, we've told this story before, and yes, maybe it is a little bit more adult to show that, oh, these plans will backfire. But I think subtly they also, Levitz, he's the only writer on this one. Levitz may have shown that Mentala was maybe the most powerful psychic person, because after she dies, all the way back at Earth, all the way those millions of trillions of miles away, instantly Saturn Girl is feeling the effects of it. And of course, Tellus, who is there at the fight, passes out instantly as well. So her psychic blasts are probably a little bit more powerful than people think.
Yeah, and I also find an interesting point in the point where she is killed. We see the Emerald Empress doing her I am a warrior routine, reaching out and snapping Mentala's neck. And there's a lot of talk, and you yourself referenced, Censor Girl is no longer in the Legion.
Right.
Not because she killed a man, but after she killed a man, reaching out and snapping his neck. And I kind of feel like this is raising that question of, is the complete and utter ban on killing realistic in a 1986 storyline framework? Because again, this is the era of Wolverine running people through. This is the era where
but this is
Daredevil
also
starts throwing people to their death.
Yeah, but that's also Marvel, and this is DC, a book where Batman says he doesn't kill, right? And Superman doesn't kill, and Wonder Woman doesn't kill during this time period. And so I think it is really hard, especially in this book, because we've already seen it with Starboy, and we've already seen it with we see it here a little bit with Princess Projectra and with Dream Girl trying to choke out the Emerald Empress. We've kind of already tried to address, can we kill? In fact, there was a couple of issues ago where they were like, is it really a big deal if we kill or not? And they really kind of say, no, we will not kill. And it's kind of like when 2 issues prior, Batman was seen firing a gun, and then 2 issues later, he's like, Batman never uses a gun, now or ever, right? And it's just like, oh, so suddenly it's this dictate that we just all are supposed to believe. And so it feels like a couple of issues ago where they're like, heck no, we don't kill, really does kind of put them in a bind. On the plus side, I would prefer that they don't kill indiscriminately, right? I would prefer that they're not killing out of rage. But if they do have to kill, like when Batman did pull the trigger, some 100 years later on Darkseid, it's like when he says, I took a solemn vow never to take someone's life with a gun, but for you, I'll make an exception. So, it has to be one of these moments where I'm not choking Emerald Empress out and trying to kill her because she knocked Tellus out or killed Mentala. I'm not doing that out of rage. I am going to kill her because she has done something super horrible. And killing, of course, is horrible, but it just doesn't feel justified for them to try to kill Emerald Empress out of rage, especially when everyone's had a moment to stand around and watch what happens. I guess that's my argument. But you're right. It is harder in this age when the competition is sitting there saying, oh yeah, it's fine if Wolverine kills. It's fine if Daredevil kills. It's fine if Spider-Man kills. And then to have your heroes sit there and say, oh, well, I guess we can't because we're quote unquote better than the competition.
But this is the thing. It's not just the competition. This is September of 86.
Yeah.
We are 6 months past.
We're into Rambo.
The Dark Knight Returns. The Dark Knight Returns is fully out and on the stands at this point. And I don't know if you remember, but there's a certain guy out there who makes movies about Batman who points out in that comic, oh, yeah, Batman just kills everybody. He just kills everybody and kills him and kills him and kills him. That didn't happen in the comic. But it definitely feels like it. And I feel like that influence is part and parcel of post-crisis DC, as well as, Bronze Age Marvel, which doesn't have the hard cut line the way we do with the Crisis. But I feel like it is neat. Well, not necessarily neat. It's thought-provoking to see the villain being vilified for literally doing the same thing that a hero did, and we're trying to accept her and maybe even forgive her for. She killed somebody for interfering with her life. Now, Projectors is much more serious. I feel like Projectors is probably more, if you're into justifying murder, more justifiable. But I feel like that is a decision that Levitz makes, and it feels intentional to have that snap neck on panel, whereas, 6 months ago, the death of Nemesis Kid was all shadowed off panel.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing that change.
Well, and again, we've talked about the villains are amping up how bad they are, and we've seen that again and again and again. So to have Emerald Empress kill Mantilla like that is shocking, but also is like, hey, these are villains that aren't screwing around. And also,
is this her first kill? I can't remember if this is the first.
Lightning Lass? I mean, no, I'm Emerald sure she's. Empress. Oh, I mean, Emerald Empress. I think that she has probably killed hundreds of thousands of people, and so this is just another. We just saw her melt that accordion or whatever a few issues ago when she ripped his eye out and melted him down.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she killed the Kundian.
Yeah.
I will melt your face.
Yeah. So this is. I mean, it's violent, but I think my biggest problem is by the end of this issue. It's a bit of a confusing issue because we did the whole illusion thing with the Persuader, and did he kill somebody or did he not kill somebody? We don't really know. And then at the end of the issue, it's like, who's alive, who's dead? And I'm not sure that we're even to the point where anyone reading this might care, just because what happened now? Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of confusing action. As you killed my friend. No, I'm going to go kill your friend. I thought I killed Censor Girl. No, I killed my people. Or is it just all a dream? It becomes very confusing in the final couple of pages. And I think that muddies this story overall.
It definitely does, but it's also interesting to see Censor Girl using her powers, first of all, to just flat out torture Persuader, but using her powers in ways that are kind of messing with everyone's perceptions, because it really is brilliant when you look at Censor Girl up until this point. She's been hiding the fact that her powers are illusionary. So she seems a lot more powerful than she is, and not just because, Levitz and Lytle intended her to be Supergirl at the beginning and then couldn't do that. It's literally something where you look at this, if you had illusionary powers, it might behoove you. It might be more useful to flat out lie about it so that people don't know they're dealing with illusions. Because, one of the big things of, oh my gosh, I have the willpower to overcome an illusion. If you look at Censor Girl previous to this, the thing she's doing, no one had any reason to believe that she was using illusions. And I think that was kind of interesting. And of course, it'll never come up again because, now we know that she's Projector, and it's going to become common knowledge that she has those illusionary powers. But her costume's much better now, so that's good.
If you enjoy the show, we would appreciate your support. You can find out more and become a Legion Clubhouse member at patreon.com/major spoilers.
Booster Gold number 8, Time Bridge Chapter 1. Published September 1986. Written by Dan Jurgens with art by Dan Jurgens and Mike DeCarlo. Synopsis: the ruins of a time bubble send the Legion back to Metropolis to unravel a mystery 500 years in the making.
We are deep into the history of Booster Gold, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a big fan of Booster Gold. I always have been, even though I think so here's the thing. If you go into anything, any activity, whether it is podcasting or comic book creation or superheroing or whatever, to make a buck, you're always going to fail. And I think that's what I like about Booster is he wanted to be a superhero to make money, not to just be good, do good. And from his very early days, it's always been kind of clear that his money troubles from his time period and his inability to deal with his money issues plague him throughout his entire career. And it's not until relatively recently, within the last 10 years, that he has come around to really understanding, oh, I can be a hero and I don't have to deck my suit out with patches and decals to hawk products. I can really do something good with that. And so it's funny that in this Booster Gold story, it's a two-parter, so we'll finish it next episode, ladies and gentlemen. But we are 6 issues into this Booster Gold run, and we're finally getting a Booster Gold kind of origin story about how he took the time bubble and whatever else, and he went back into the past to make a quick buck, and he's going to do it by saving Reagan and Bush. I might have had him go back maybe another 30 years and maybe save a different president.
Yeah, but the wonderful part about the first 7 issues of Booster Gold, and this is the point where I was reading comics, any comic I could get my hands on religiously, and for some reason Booster Gold was always on the stands, and I bought issue 1 of Booster Gold, and then I started reading, Booster Gold regularly, and it starts in a very modern place. You get that. It's almost an in media res thing where here's this superhero, his name is Booster Gold, he's flying around, Superman doesn't trust him, and then Jurgens takes a full 6 issues of deconstruction to kind of unwrap why this guy is weird and why he feels like a fish out of water. And it's, I think, at the end of issue 6 that they actually say he's from the future.
No, because this is issue 6, right? Or is it, what is this? This is issue 8. Okay, yeah. So we are way into this story before you find out he's a time traveler. And then you have to explain why he's a time traveler. So I don't know. I've always liked Booster Gold a lot as a hero. And so it's good to see that the Legion are interacting because, of course, one of the things that Booster ends up with is a flight ring, a Legion flight ring. He also ends up with Brainiac's force field belt that he uses for a lot of his powers. And, of course, the Legion of Superheroes comes in the third age of man after previous collapses. And if you are wondering about those, of course, Brian Michael Bendis spelled it out in excruciating detail that we'll get to hopefully in a few years, providing we get that hot Patreon money, patreon.com/.
I don't think I want to.
And then, and so, there's the question for the Legion members is, why does someone from the Legion's past have their technology in an even further back time period when there's no record of this time bubble that Booster has, which is Rip Hunter's time bubble, time sphere, that there's no indication that it ever went to the Legion's time period. And so there's a mystery afoot. And so the Scooby Gang, composed of Brainiac, Ultra Boy, and Chameleon Boy, are going to travel into the past to figure out who this nefarious person is. And it just so happens that there's a plot against Ronald Reagan and George Bush Sr. To kill President Reagan and then make George Bush president, like that'll ever happen. And then he will abdicate his position and making whoever rescued the president his new vice president, thus making him the president. It's a little complicated. It's a little weird, kind of bait and switch. Why not just become Ronald Reagan and just do away with both of them, and you'll have the best of both worlds? So it's a little bit of a complicated storyline, and it's also weird that Deathlock shows up in this issue.
It's not Deathlock.
It sure as heck looks like Deathlock. Go look up any picture of Deathlock and look at this emaciated burn face and the shiny chrome and red costume. This dude is Deathlock, and again, okay. We've seen Captain America references appear. We see other Marvel references appear. This guy is out and out Deathlock.
First, and I think this is most important, the Deathlock that we're referring to, that this looks like, actually comes later. That's the second Deathlock, the Michael Collins Deathlock. But I will grant you that Chiller looks kind of like Deathlock. But I feel like the use of Reagan in a DC comic is important here because we saw, actually probably many, many issues ago, we saw that specific reference to John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
But most of the time throughout the Silver Age and into the early Bronze Age, DC didn't refer to real life people. It was never like, oh, here's Senator Strom Thurmond.
Except that time that the Beatles showed up on David Letterman.
That happened, but that also happened in a Marvel comic. But the thing that I really like is that they tied it into a modern, here's the world outside your window.
Yeah,
this is DC moving to emulate Marvel,
but DC has always used a real president as their president.
No, they have not.
Except for Lex Luthor, of course.
No, not in the 70s and the 80s. No, they have not.
Okay, if you say so, because
they went out of their way to not reference, with exceptions, obviously, but they went out of their way to not reference Nixon, not reference Carter. We had specific things where it's like, oh, the president is here, but you'd see a shadowy head and someone would be like, we're going to DEFCON 5, It's not Lyndon Johnson, but it is Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah.
Also,
let's be fair. Reagan does not look like Reagan, and Bush does not look like Bush in this bit. But I will say, I like Jurgens' art in here. I like his character designs in this piece. I will also say that Chiller, when he goes undercover, shapeshifts. They use a code. The Secret Service uses the code Rawhide. That is actually Ronald Reagan's Secret Service code name.
That's a nice touch. I do like that.
I also like that Chiller's. I also like that Chiller's ability is not like Chameleon Boy's, but it's more like the Avenger, who could go in and shapeshift his face, actually mold his face to look like something, which I always found super interesting. That's
interesting because I was reading this and I thought, I hate that it seems too old school and too pulpy, and I didn't think about the Avenger. And it may be the fact that Booster has these 25th century powers and that the Legionnaires are in this. And then we have a bad guy who literally pushes his face he's making his face into the Lionel Richie clay head from the Hello video. But I feel like your point there is interesting because this is also a point where, DC was scaling things down. Superman was no longer as powerful. Batman was slightly more street level. I wonder if this is an intentional, hey, look at this guy. He molds his face like
it's different.
Avenger.
I think I don't know the whole history of Chiller, I do know that he is a quote unquote dead shot. But I will say this: I don't know if this is his first appearance or what in this issue. It is okay. So here's the deal. You've got Chameleon Boy showing up in this issue, and I feel like you can't have the two shapeshifters using the same powers, and you also have two people who are using hollow projectors to make them look like the Hardy Boys. And so I think that you do need somebody that's like, okay, we need a guy who can shape his face to look something different. His powers have to be different. And it's like, oh, his face is like super putty. He can mold it and then freeze it in place. And then they're like, well, you have to be a little careful with that freeze thing because that's the Question's whole deal is he uses a gas to make everything come on and off. So you got to be careful there. And so I think that's why they ended up with this guy.
Well, that question doesn't exist yet. He comes around in 88.
Yeah, he'll come around in a few years, but they're plotting in the background.
This is Chiller's first appearance. And also, this and next issue are the entirety of his appearances for about 4 years.
I'm okay with that.
And then he just, I think he's appeared like 15 times all told.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I have a couple of concerns about this. First of all, in today's world, somebody reading this would be like, see, DC predicted this all the way back in 1986, because there's these weird conspiracy theories going around about Biden and Obama have been replaced by mandroids or something, that they're not human, right? So you've got that little bit of a conspiracy going on. And then the other thing that I'm a little concerned about, granted, it's a couple of years after the fact, but Ronald Reagan did survive an assassination attempt by John Hinckley Jr. And so to bring up an assassination attempt in a comic book with a president who almost died from being shot, I question that. Maybe they should have just kept it with a no-name President Grant or something, or President Schmilhouse or something.
I actually had not thought about that, and really didn't think about that when this story came out. I remember reading it and going, oh, wow, that's so cool. Oh, we saved the president. And the next issue, the president does a thing that is amazing. It's an amazing thing. But I also kind of wonder if that wasn't the intention. If, like, this story is long before the time where, saying the K word and the P word in the same sentence would get you put on the list, and Jeffrey Bezos would be listening to you at all times. But I
don't know how everyone is communicating in these days. I don't know if Dan Jurgens is calling up Mike DeCarlo or calling up his editor at DC and says, yeah, we have this plan to kill the president on page 12. And it's like, I don't know, or if they're faxing it or what's going on, but this seems like a way to get on a watch list real quick.
Probably faxing. Trying to remember when, like,
fax machines have been around. Fax machines have been around forever. They've been around since the 1900s. Fax machines have been around
since the 1800s. But it's literally possible for a samurai to have sent a fax to Abraham Lincoln. It didn't happen, but the technology and the samurai and the president were all extant at the same moment. But my question here is, when you say, are those, like, there wouldn't have been cellular networks necessarily.
Oh, no.
Would have had, would a car phone, like a Zach Morris car phone or one of those early cell phones, would that even work for, like, sending a fax in 1986? I don't know.
It's a modem. That's all it is. So, as usually happens in comic books, the heroes meet up and they are confused about who's the bad guy, and they fight. And that's where the issue ends.
Chameleon Boy and Booster Gold have a really cool moment, though, because Chameleon Boy is like, oh, no, Michael Carter is going to kill the president. And Booster is like, oh, no, that orange alien is going to kill the president.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that because, again, it does feel like DC kind of emulating the success of Marvel, but doing it in a really interesting way. And there is a moment where you see Chameleon Boy and Booster, like, flying up at the same time, which reminds you of one thing and one thing only. Dan Jurgens is a master of drawing guys wearing tights.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yep. That wraps it up for this issue. Matthew, what did we learn this week?
We learned that no mere mortal can survive the evil of the Chiller.
I think we also learned that linking minds together will never come up again and will never backfire on anybody.
Most importantly, we learned that Booster Gold's original pop color is awesome, and people who don't like it are doing comics wrong.
Way to gatekeep there, Matthew. Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this week. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, etc., just hit us up. You know how to get us on the socials. Otherwise, we'll see you over at our Patreon page, patreon.com/Major Spoilers. And until next time, I'm Booster Gold's #1 fan, man.
And I'm Booster Platinum.
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.